February 20th, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled 6-3 that the largest tariff regime since World War II is illegal. The government had already collected $166 billion under those tariffs. Roughly 330,000 importers paid them. A federal judge ordered the refund process to begin in early March. The first checks start landing this week. 7 categories of products at Walmart absorb the cost of those refunds before any check is mailed back. Here they are in the order the price tag changes. By the end of this video, 3 things. First, the 7 categories, sourced from Walmart's own February 19th earnings call, the Tax Foundation, the Yale Budget Lab, and the U.S. Customs and Border Protection refund declarations filed in court late last month. Second, the exact week each one shifts on the shelf, not someday, not eventually, the week. Third, the 3 items worth buying this weekend before the wave reaches retail. By minute 11, you have the map. By minute 12, the action plan. Start with what actually happened in the last 80 days. On February 20th, 2026, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in Learning Resources versus Trump that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, known as IEEPA, does not authorize the president to impose tariffs. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion. He was joined by Justices Gorsuch, Barrett, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson on the bottom line holding. Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh dissented. The ruling vacated the so-called reciprocal tariffs imposed on most U.S. trading partners since April of last year, and the trafficking and fentanyl tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. 4 days later, on February 24th, U.S. Customs and Border Protection stopped collecting them. That same day, a new 10% tariff went into force on imports from nearly every country, this time under Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. That tariff is scheduled to expire automatically on July 24th, 150 days from when it started. So the regime did not disappear. It changed legal authority. The price tag at the store does not care which authority signed the order. The scale of what the government had collected matters here. According to Customs and Border Protection filings, the IEEPA tariffs had brought in approximately $166 billion across about 53 million individual shipments since April 2025. The Penn-Wharton budget model estimates that, once statutory interest is added under federal regulations, the total refund liability could reach $175 billion. For context, that is more than the combined annual budget of the U.S. Department of Transportation and the U.S. Department of Justice. On March 4th, Judge Richard Eaton of the Court of International Trade issued his first refund order. When the government's lawyer argued in court that Customs needed more time to set up procedures, Eaton's response was on the record. The law is clear. You have to start doing it now using your regular procedures. That was March 4th. On March 27th, Eaton broadened the order. Customs would have to liquidate or reliquidate every entry, including final ones, not just the entries from importers who had filed lawsuits. On April 20th, Customs launched the refund portal. The acronym is CAPE, Consolidated Administration and Processing of Entries. 6 days later, on April 26th, importers and brokers had submitted 75,300 refund declarations, covering more than 11 million individual entries. That number is from a sworn declaration the agency filed with the court 2 days later. The Home Furnishings Association reported on May 6th that Customs had approved roughly 3% of those claims, with the first refund money expected to land in importer bank accounts via electronic transfer the week of May 11th. Now the part that is not on the front page. The refund check does not lower the price on the shelf. The check goes to the importer who paid the tariff at the dock, Walmart, Target, Best Buy, Home Depot, not to the customer who paid the markup at the register. JP Morgan ran the numbers. In 2025, businesses absorbed roughly 80% of the tariff cost. They ate it. Margin took the hit. The customer at the register barely noticed because companies had built up inventory before the tariffs and were eating the cost on the new wave. In 2026, JP Morgan estimates that 80% shrinks to 20%, which means 80% of the tariff is now passing through to the consumer. The companies absorbed the shock for 1 full year. They cannot do it for 2. Inventory cushions run out. Quarterly margins do not. So even as the refund money starts flowing back to importers, the wave that already crossed the dock and the wave that is crossing now under the new 10% Section 122 is being priced into shelves at a much higher pass-through rate than last year. The Supreme Court did its job. The trial court did its job. The refund process is moving. None of that resets the shelf. The check arriving at Walmart's loading dock is moving on one clock. The price you pay at the register is moving on a different clock. 2 different systems, 2 different sets of rules, 2 different sets of people. That is the part the headlines are missing. Now, the 7 categories. 1. Home furnishings. Furniture, mattresses, kitchen tables, bookshelves, area rugs. This category has the thinnest margins of anything Walmart sells. There is nothing left to absorb. Lauren Murphy, managing director at Wells Fargo Retail Finance, told Fox Business in late December that home goods inventory still in transit from overseas suppliers was projected to rise 62% in early 2026. That inventory is the wave. It carries the new tariff cost. Status, already on the shelf. 2. Kitchen appliances and small electronics. Microwaves, blenders, coffee makers, vacuums, fans, space heaters. Double exposure. Section 232 on steel, aluminum, and copper at 50%, that one was not invalidated. And on top of that, the new 10% Section 122 on the imported finished good. 2 to 3 weeks to the shelf. 3. Toys and electronics. Walmart's leadership has identified toys and electronics for years as the categories where Chinese imports create the greatest cost pressure. The reciprocal IEEPA tariff on Chinese imports was as high as 45%. After the Supreme Court ruling, it dropped to 10% under Section 122. Lower than before, but still 10% on top of the older Section 301 tariffs that the Supreme Court did not touch. 3 to 4 weeks. 4. Clothing and footwear. Sourcing is concentrated in Vietnam, India, Bangladesh. Reciprocal IEEPA rates ranging from 15 to 46% fell to 10% under Section 122. Apparel cycles take 6 to 10 weeks from dock to rack. The next refresh hits stores in late May and June. Whatever is on the floor right now was ordered before the new 10% tariff took effect. Whatever comes after carries it. 4 to 6 weeks. 5. Packaged food with imported ingredients. Coffee, cocoa, olive oil, specialty cheese, certain canned goods. Walmart's previous CEO once described the pressure on tropical commodities, bananas, coffee, avocados, coming from tariffs on Costa Rica, Peru, and Colombia. Those countries' coffee and cocoa do not grow in North America. They have to be imported. The tariff applies. Quarterly contract resets, 6 to 8 weeks. 6. Building materials and tools. Lumber, drill bits, paint, copper pipe, fasteners, fence posts. Section 232 on steel, aluminum, and copper at 50%. Section 232 on lumber at 10%. Both still in force. Neither was touched by the Supreme Court. Memorial Day weekend is 6 weeks away. Demand peaks. So does pricing. Status, already on the shelf, getting worse. 7. Automotive supplies and parts. Engine oil, wiper blades, filters, tires, batteries. 12 to 16-week supply cycles. The inventory currently on shelves was purchased before March. The next wave carries Section 232 on auto parts at 25%, plus the Section 122 10%, 8 to 12 weeks, the slowest of the 7. I want to know what category you noticed first. Comment below. Was it the appliances, the lumber, the kids' clothes, or something I did not list? Tell me where you shop and what you saw. Now the part of the story that almost no one is reading. On February 19th, 2026, one day before the Supreme Court ruled, Walmart held its fourth quarter earnings call. That call mattered for two reasons. First, it was the first quarterly report under John Furner as CEO. He took the seat on February 1st. Second, it was the last time Walmart's leadership talked publicly about cost pressure for the upcoming year before the legal landscape exploded. What they told investors on that call, on the record, was this. The company expects first quarter operating income growth in fiscal 2027 to be lower than any other quarter of the year. The reason given, quote, timing of expenses and the year-over-year tariff impacts that started in last year's second quarter. That was 24 hours before SCOTUS. Walmart serves approximately 280 million customers a week across more than 10,900 stores in 19 countries. Roughly 1/3 of what the US side sells is imported. China, Mexico, Canada, Vietnam, India, those are the 5 biggest sources. Every one of those countries was hit by the IEEPA tariffs that just got struck down. Every one of those countries is now hit by the new 10% Section 122 tariff. The next earnings call is May 21st, 13 days from now. That call is the first time Walmart's leadership will speak publicly after the refund process started moving, after CAPE went live, after the first checks landed, after the 10% Section 122 has been collected for nearly 3 months. Wall Street will react to that call inside 90 seconds. Wall Street is not going to tell you what it means for your refrigerator, your car parts, or your kids' clothes. This video puts you ahead of that call by 13 days, not as a stock tip, as a household map. This morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, the University of Michigan released the preliminary May reading of its Consumer Sentiment Index, 48.2. The lowest reading on the survey's records, going back to 1952. Lower than any month of the Great Recession. Lower than any month of the pandemic. Lower than the inflation peak in 2022. Joanne Su, the survey's director, said in the release, quote, consumers continue to feel buffeted by cost pressures, led by soaring prices at the pump. About 1/3 of consumers spontaneously mentioned gasoline prices. About 30% mentioned tariffs. These are not the same shock. The fuel pump is one clock. The tariff cascade is another. Both are running at the same time on the same household. The Tax Foundation's May 5th update estimates the average U.S. household will pay an additional $700 in tariff-related costs in 2026, on top of the $1,000 per household tariffs added in 2025. The Yale Budget Lab's April 8th update estimates the household price impact at between $760 and $940 if Section 122 expires on schedule in late July, and between $1,200 and $1,500 if Section 122 is extended. That range, $700 to $1,500, is the spread that depends on what happens at the next major tariff deadline, July 24th, 11 weeks away. Now the action plan. 3 items worth buying this weekend while the wave is still in the wholesale layer. 1. Kitchen appliances and small electronics. If you've been putting off replacing a microwave, a vacuum, a coffee maker, or a fan, the next 2 to 3 weeks are the window. Section 232 on the steel and aluminum inside these products is 50% and is not going away. 2. Building materials and tools. If you have a spring or summer project, fence repair, deck staining, new fixtures, a paint job. Buy the materials now. Memorial Day is 6 weeks away. Demand pricing on these categories peaks the same week. 3. Replacement clothing for kids growing into the next size. The clothing on Walmart racks ordered after February 24th lands in late May. The window for pre-Section 122 pricing closes the same week. If your child is between sizes, buy the next size up this weekend. 2 notes on what not to do. 1. Do not buy a new car or major appliance package on emergency right now. Section 232 on automotive imports is in flux. The tariff regime is being rewritten in court quietly, week by week. The price equilibrium is 6 to 8 weeks away. 2. Do not panic buy shelf-stable groceries because of this video. Tariff exposure on packaged food is real but slow. Coffee, oil, the strait, the war, those are different clocks, all running. This video is about a different vector. Stack the planning, but do not stack the panic. Share this video with the people who are important to you, the ones who need to know this before they walk into a store this weekend. Today, not tomorrow. The window on 3 of those 7 categories closes inside 14 days. One last thought. The Supreme Court did its job. The trial court did its job. The refund process is moving. The first checks land this week. None of that lowers the price tag on the shelf. The check goes to the importer who paid the tariff at the dock, not to the customer who paid the markup at the register. The system that processes a refund and the system that prices a shelf are 2 different systems, governed by 2 different sets of rules, run by 2 different sets of people. The check arriving at Walmart's loading dock does not reset the shelf price at the front of the store. That is the part the headlines are missing. If this is the kind of decoding you want, every news event mapped onto your pantry, anchored in primary sources, no filler, subscribe.